Welcome to the Backyard Professor Responds. My very good friend Gerardo, who is one of the co-hosts of John Deline's Mormon Stories podcasts, has asked me to look into a church-related, church-produced video on the Book of Abraham, and it's only like 5 minutes and 7 seconds, and really, truly, they have simplified this down really a lot. And so I don't need to play the vast majority of the video to you because it's primary level, and I'm honestly not trying to be insulting, but there is one particular clip that I will say something about, and they don't recognize still the problems. Apparently, this was just produced a couple of years ago. So, and this is from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the series that they call Now You Know. And taking 5 minutes to tell us about the Book of Abraham, of course, you know they're going to streamline this beyond all reasonableness. Let's take a look at this clip.
In 1880. After Joseph Smith's death in 1844, the papyrus scrolls were sold off to various parties, with most of them ending up in a museum in Chicago. Sadly, historians believe these papyri were destroyed in the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. However, in the 1960s, 10 fragments of the scrolls were found in the archives of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. These papyrus fragments were subsequently transferred back to the church. One fragment contains a partial copy of a drawing included in the Book of Abraham, called Facsimile 1, which is currently on display in Salt Lake City. Egyptologists have translated these papyrus fragments and determined that they don't directly relate to the Book of Abraham. Instead, they contain ancient Egyptian funerary texts. Why did these fragments not contain text from the Book of Abraham? Many researchers believe that Joseph translated the Book of Abraham from portions of the scrolls that are now lost. Others suggest that Joseph's study of the papyri acted as a catalyst for him to receive the Book of Abraham by revelation. One thing is certain: the translation of the Book of Abraham was not a typical translation. It came through inspiration from God.
So I have to respond to that because the one theory, I think they're taking this from their cue of the church essay, right? That they put on the official church website, and they made it so very damnably difficult to find because they don't really want you to read this. Well, be that as it may, the idea of the Book of Abraham being lost from being translated from a scroll that was then lost is John Gee's, and that has been entirely refuted by John Gee's own professor, Robert Rittner, in his book, The Joseph Smith Papyri, A Complete Edition. And so that argument is no longer viable. And then they postulate the other argument, wherein the direct inspiration from God gave Joseph Smith the Book of Abraham, when in fact Joseph Smith was actually saying and claiming, as were his scribes who were dictating the information from him, that he was translating the Egyptian language, and he knew how it read. He misidentified many, many characters of hieroglyphics, mind you, not just the figures, like he did in facsimile number 2, but in facsimile number 3. He would identify the hieroglyphs as read by the Egyptians, which were above several of the different figures. He named one the name of the king, which of course he did not translate accurately. He used another one as the name of Shulam, the waiter, etc., he didn't get any of the Egyptian hieroglyphics correct. For them to conclude, therefore, that the one thing is certain, the Book of Abraham came about through inspiration, really puts this onus onto God not knowing ancient Egyptian. Because we actually do, and I know Mormons really don't like hearing this. I get it. I didn't either as a former apologist. We know what the Egyptian hieroglyphics say. We've had 200 years of learning the language. We have translated tens of thousands of texts. I say we as humans. It's the Egyptologists, not we as in me. I've done a smattering of translating and reading in Egyptian, and I'm nowhere near competent. I mean we as in humanity. The ability to translate the papyri, all of the hieroglyphs from both the Book of Breathings, the Book of Tasheret Min, the hieroglyphics that are in the facsimiles and are in the papyri, is fundamentally translatable. The remarkably interesting thing is when Robert Rittner translates the hieroglyphics, Hugh Nibley agreed with his teacher, Klaus Baer, on his translation of the hieroglyphics, and in his first edition of the Message of the Joseph Smith Papyri, Hugh Nibley translated the hieroglyphics from the Egyptian pretty much really similar to how the Egyptologist Klaus Baer translated it. Now, later, years later, Robert Rittner came along and he also translated the papyri, and his translation was very, very, very much in line with that of Klaus Baer. Other LDS scholars, Michael Dennis Rhodes, took his hand at translating the papyri and the hieroglyphics on the facsimiles, and when he does it as an academic exercise using the known rules of Egyptian linguistics, grammar, and syntax, his translation agrees pretty much with what Robert Rittner has translated. When John Gee, in an academic vein, translates the Egyptian hieroglyphics, his translation also agrees with Robert Rittner's translation. No Egyptologist, whether they be Mormon Egyptologists, that is, from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or from those from the University of Chicago, or those Egyptologists from UCLA, or from those Egyptologists out of Germany, or out of anywhere else in Europe, or whether they reside in Australia, or in Canada, or in North America, all of the Egyptologists, including the LDS Egyptologists, admit that the papyri don't have the Book of Abraham in the Egyptian. So the church appears to me to be seriously misleading in this brief 5-minute video. And this is one of the reasons why, fundamentally, I stopped being a Mormon apologist. Because the fact is, I can't defend the indefensible.